Your attachment style is not destiny, and it is most definitely not a crystal ball that dictates your future. I once had a client, and she could have been one of many of my clients, who really set a goal for herself that she wanted to put herself out there to be able to meet people and potentially start dating. And so she really took some amazing steps forward to be out in more spaces and places where she can meet people. She connected with someone who was of interest. They went on a date, they went on another date, and then we had a session. And she tells me, you know what, Lauren, this has been great. I put myself out there. I'm going on dates with this person. They seem really cool. I'm really excited. But we're coming up across date number 3, so you know it's all about to go down the tubes. And I was like, wait a second, did I miss something? Like, is there something momentous about date number 3? Does this client know something that I don't know? Like, what is going on here? And she essentially told me that she knows that she has an anxious attachment style. This is something that we'd explored or discussed in the past, but she was like, around date number 3 is always when it comes up. And I do something, I say something coming from that kind of anxious attachment space, and it blows things up. And this is the exact way I don't want you thinking about attachment style. Because attachment style has become something more kind of in our common conversations, sometimes we talk about it like it's a personality type or quiz, or like it is destiny. But understanding your attachment style is really just one dimension of understanding yourself. And in fact, I want to help you understand that your attachment style is less of a style, it's more of an adaptation, and there's actually more flexibility in it than you might think. But before we dive into all of that, let me introduce myself. My name is Lauren Ludlow. I am a licensed clinical social worker and licensed therapist who specializes in somatic and mind-body work and helping folks to do the deep work of healing while also implementing practices that are going to show up as new patterns in their day-to-day life. I do a lot of work with folks in the areas of attachment and relational trauma, as well as long-standing anxiety and folks who identify as being in survival mode. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to be able to effortlessly engage in close and connected relationships while other people struggle, either fearing connection while desiring it and backing away as soon as things get too close, or feeling a lot of anxiety, or just being unable to establish and maintain close connections, attachment theory can give us a lens through which we can understand why this is happening and what is going on. So I first want to just give you an overview of attachment theory and what we think of as the 4 primary attachment styles. So attachment theory tells us that the blueprint, the foundation, the wiring for how we engage and connect with others gets laid down when we are really young. Our early relationship with our parents, or primary caregivers does a lot to wire our nervous system and wire our brains for certain ways of connecting with the world. Those early years teach us how is it safe, how is it okay to extend, be vulnerable with, and reach out for connection with those around us, and what can we expect in return. The 4 main attachment styles that we think of are, number 1, secure attachment. With secure attachment, what we get is people who feel generally comfortable engaging and connecting deeply with others and are able to do so while still maintaining their sense of self. They are able to create friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships, where they feel like they can share, be there, and lean on other people, but also they have their own internal world. They have their own, sense of an emotional self. They can allow people to depend on them while also holding boundaries. So it's like they have this firmly established sense of self, but they're also able to connect, be interdependent, and intertwine their lives with other people depending on their relationship. This style of attachment typically forms when someone has a caregiver or caregivers who are consistent with them, who give them consistent love, care, and nurturing, who are relaxed in their presence, who are happy or feel positive about seeing them or interacting with them. That sort of consistent care, being there and showing up in that way, creates a foundation for secure attachment. Next, we have anxious attachment. Folks who experience or live with anxious attachment desire deep closeness with other people. They want to be loved, they want to be held, they want to be connected, but that desire comes also with a deep fear of abandonment. For folks who experience anxious attachment, there is this constant felt need to check and recheck and establish and reestablish connection, to be useful. Because if you're useful, well, then maybe folks will not abandon you. So if you can become essential to someone, that might feel like security. Folks with anxious attachment might struggle with setting boundaries because saying no could lead to rejection. When we think about anxious attachment, we really think about someone who they are wanting to do everything that they can to make sure that they are not abandoned or rejected in their relationship. And no matter how comfortable and well established the relationship is, that fear doesn't tend to go away. So we wouldn't say that you've got anxious attachment if you feel a little bit nervous in the early stages of dating or making a friend when things are wobbly and you're not sure. But if you are deep into a really connected friendship, you're deep into a really trusting romantic relationship, but this fear of abandonment still showing up, that might be an indicator that we've got some anxious attachment going on. Sometimes anxious attachment is the result of having inconsistent caregivers who are either physically inconsistent, like inconsistent in terms of their presence and meeting needs early on in life, or emotionally inconsistent caregivers, sometimes showing up as warm and pleasant and pleased, and sometimes showing up as cold, distant, and displeased. This creates this early wiring that says, I'm not enough and I maybe could be abandoned at any time. Next, we've got avoidant attachment. And the theme for avoidant attachment is, if you can't get close to me, you can't hurt me. And folks who have or experience or live with avoidant attachment, that doesn't mean that they don't desire closeness, they don't crave relationship, but they have found safety and security in being very independent, very self-sufficient, only allowing relationships to be not too close. There is a feeling of insecurity that comes up with too much vulnerability and too much closeness, because that opens up room for pain. So folks who are present as more avoidant, they might be more muted in the way that they express themselves in relationships, or fiercely independent or fiercely self-sufficient, and really have an attitude of, I am here to take care of my emotional needs. You are there to take care of your emotional needs, your emotions, your internal world, none of my business. My emotions, my internal world, none of your business. Avoidant attachment can come from having caregivers early on in life that are unavailable or dismissive. So just not there, not present, or physically engaged but emotionally disengaged. Or caregivers who often dismiss a young child or an infant's calls or cries for help, whether that is actual cries for help and not attending to their needs when they're communicating their needs as an infant, or cries for help in terms of as a toddler, their desire for attention, their desire to be tended to and to receive loving care. That sort of dismissiveness can lead to avoidant attachment. And then we have disorganized attachment. And you can think of disorganized attachment as almost being a tug of war. There's a desire for closeness. So I want to be close to you. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be connected. We're super close. And then, because that's so scary and so hard to tolerate, get away from me, get distant. You're too in my business. I'm too in your business. We need some space. And so disorganized attachment, we have this constant push-pull tugging dynamic going on. People who experience disorganized attachment can experience a lot of inner turmoil and a lot of inner conflict, because nothing about no state of a relationship feels totally good. The closeness feels good and they desire the closeness, but the closeness feels scary and unstable. And then at the same time, the distance feels good. The distance feels safer. They have an intact sense of self, but at the same time, they feel alone. They feel isolated. And so that's what leads to this constant push and pull and tug. This attachment style can often form in environments that feel very unsafe, unstable, and unpredictable. So maybe environments where there was abuse, where there was acute trauma or long-term trauma. These sorts of environments can lead to disorganized attachment. One of the things that creates this disorganized attachment is having a caregiver that is both a source of care and comfort, but then also the source of pain, fear, challenge, or problem. And so that's where we see disorganized attachment more likely to maybe come up. Before we go any further, I want to clarify that attachment theory is a theory, and that means that there have been folks who have looked at evidence over time and seen evidence that our nervous systems and our minds may be organized in this way. It gives us a helpful evidence-based lens through which to understand ourselves, other people, and our relationships, but theories are not laws and theories are not perfect. Theories are getting refined all the time. They are getting adapted all the time. And so attachment theory has its helpful aspects, and attachment theory has its very, very legitimate critiques. And I say that to say that we should not live or die by theories. We should not treat our attachment style like it's destiny because, again, attachment theory is a theory. What's important to understand is that your attachment style isn't really even so much a style, and it's definitely not a flaw. Your way of engaging with attachment is an adaptation. It is a survival adaptation that you developed in order to try to find some sense of safety in the way that you connected with people around you. Children are wired for adaptation, and so our attachment styles, our attachment adaptations, are really us as children brilliantly doing our best to adapt to the relational world around us. Also, it's important to understand that these attachment adaptations exist on a spectrum. Maybe you're somewhere in between secure and anxious, or somewhere in between secure and avoidant, or somewhere in between anxious and avoidant, or avoidant and disorganized. There are very few people who exist fully and all the time in all of their relationships in one zone, in one attachment adaptation. It's more flexible than we think. And our attachment adaptations are flexible in more than one way. They're not just flexible in the way that many of us do not fit neatly into one category of attachment adaptation. They can actually change, evolve, and grow over time. There's something called the dynamic maturational model of attachment. And this model of attachment says that our relationships over time are shaped by our attachment adaptations, but the other side of that is true too. Our relationships also continue to shape our attachment adaptations over time. So it's not like, boom, you stop when you're 5 years old, your attachment style is your attachment style, and there's no more moving forward. The dynamic maturational model of attachment says that, look, you developed these adaptations because it was unsafe or necessary for your survival to relate to the world in a certain way. But guess what? As you go through the world, as you have more relational experiences, those relational experiences can transform you. And they can transform you in the way of pushing you deeper into those survival adaptations, or they can transform you in terms of helping you to reach for more secure attachment, opening up and connecting more deeply. So if you are really intentional about cultivating, nourishing, loving, caring, consistent relationships in your life, that over time will help to transform your attachment adaptations. Basically, let's say that you had all the most challenging foundation laid. You didn't control who your early caregivers were. You didn't control what your early life looks like. But let's say that you get out of your household as a young adult, you start to live on your own, you find friendships that are loving, caring, and nurturing. You work in an environment where even though your colleagues are not your best friends, everyone is respectful, everyone is kind, and in general, it's a safe place to show up. You maybe have a partner or a part of a relationship where you are loved and cared for consistently. Then maybe that disorganized attachment adaptation adaptation that got laid down for years and years and years in your nervous system starts to transform. Your brain rewires. That good old neuroplasticity comes into play, and all of a sudden you find yourself showing up in more and more secure ways. Or once you backed away from closeness, now you're able to open up to closeness when you trust the other person. Where once you were always concerned about not being good enough, you find yourself thinking less and less about being good enough and more about receiving care and giving care and just being allowed to live your life. Your brain and your body can learn new ways and develop new patterns for relating to the world. And I think it's really important that we bring up the body at this point. One of the ways that clues about our attachment adaptation show up is through our body, and we can really discover a lot about our attachment adaptations through somatic work. So for example, let's say that you get a text message from a friend or a loved one, and you don't even read the message yet, but you just see the message pop up on your screen. If you consistently experience like a tightness in your chest or a little bit of a feeling of panic or worry, and these are like good friends, good loved ones, people that you trust, that could be a body cue, a somatic sign of some anxious attachment adaptations going on. Maybe that text message feels like, oh my goodness, now I have to perform, now I have to respond, I have to think of something witty or relevant to say. Now I've been kind of pulled out of my place of peace and I've got to engage with this person, which on the surface level is not scary if you trust them or if they're a friend or someone you're close to. But remember what we said, when it comes to anxious attachment, there's always this underlying question of, am I going to be good enough? Or on the flip side, let's say that you're out with a group of friends and they start to get into a lively debate about something. Music, whether one artist is good, bad, relevant, irrelevant. And as that discussion gets lively, you find yourself disconnecting, avoiding, sort of checking out. You feel a certain numbness in your body, like you're not there in the present moment. That might be a bodily cue that we've got some avoidant attachment going on. As everyone else is getting in there and connecting and sharing thoughts and ideas, the instinct is to pull away, to disconnect, for your body to go into a protective numbness. Could be a sign that we're working with some avoidant attachment going on there. And for folks that I've worked with who experience disorganized attachment, sometimes they can physically feel the tension of the push and pull within their own bodies. It shows up as actual physical tension in their stomach. It shows up as kind of almost feeling like they're being pulled in two directions internally. It can be a very uncomfortable actual physical experience. The reason why these somatic cues are important is they can give us clues into how we're relating to the world around us, but also learning to work with those sensations in the body can open up some new pathways for secure attachment. So if I notice that I'm just feeling this tightness in the chest whenever I get a text message, if I can learn how to soothe, release, and let go of some of that tightness, it might open up room for me to text with a little bit more relaxation, and over time for my nervous system to learn, you know what, it is safe and secure to just text your friends back casually. Or if I start to feel that numbness when lively friendship debates come up, if I can learn to re-engage with my senses, if I can learn to detect what is it that I'm hearing that's bringing up the numbness, if I can help myself to physically re-engage and ground in that present moment, it might open up some pathways for me to be able to join the conversation a little bit later, because my nervous system is learning I can stay engaged and I'm okay at the end of that interaction. The awareness of these physical cues can help us to slow down, recognize what is going on in that moment, engage in self-soothing and resourcing so that we have new choices and new options. And those new choices and options can lead to new relational experiences, and those new relational experiences can transform our attachment adaptations over time. So it's a very powerful, very hopeful process. One of the most beautiful concepts within attachment theory is that healing is possible over time through relationships. We do not sit there and heal our attachment wounds all alone. It's almost easy to say, oh, I've healed my attachment wounds and I'm relating better to those around me if we're healing totally in isolation, if we're just doing work by ourselves because we're not confronted with any of the things that are activating. So It is possible to heal over time in the context of relationship. That means that it's really important that you don't wait until you have some sort of perfect attachment style and you're relating perfectly to engage with people around you, to believe that you are worthy of love and care, and to pursue and try your best to build loving and caring relationships. Understanding your attachment adaptations, learning to tune into your physical cues, learning some things that are going to help you to soothe and regulate, maybe doing some deeper work around trauma to make new patterns possible, can all lead to having relationships that have a secure functioning to them. And those secure functioning relationships and experiencing them enough over time can lead to more secure attachment. So your attachment style is not your destiny. It is more like a starting point. And I hope that this has helped you to get an understanding of how you can move forward from that starting point. If you're really curious on a deeper level about attachment, you're wanting to heal some attachment wounds, or let's say that you're part of a couple and you each have attachment wounds, you know it. There's some things around your attachment style that are getting in the way. I really encourage you to check out what sort of healing modalities are going to help you to be able to move forward. EMDR, somatic work, or an attachment-based sort of couples therapy, or I practice this psychobiological approach to couples therapy. Those can all be really helpful in supporting you in getting to that secure functioning and trying out some new patterns so that you can develop the types of relationships that are going to help you heal over time. And so if you're curious, I have more information on my website. Feel free to check out blog posts and other information there. And make sure to subscribe for more videos that help you to understand attachment and, more than anything, your nervous system.